Hello, good evening, everyone. This is Reverend Vicki Hughes, and you are watching Embracing Diversity. This is our dialogue series. Tonight is Tuesday, February 8th. Happy Black History Month. Whether our sons are being shot down by the police, vigilantes, or their peers, whether our men are dying early from stress and disease, whether Black boys and men are being locked away in jails and prisons or suffering intellectual death at an early age in inferior and failing schools, Black men are endangered. This is not my opinion. This comes from an article. It was posted in New York Amsterdam News, March 2012. And if I may, I would like to read basically a story, a testimony of something that happened to David J. Knight. He wrote an article called Don't Tell Young Black Males That They Are Endangered. He published this article in October 2014. So again, this is an experience he had. Several years ago, I was at an orientation for new teachers. I had just gotten a job teaching middle school in Boston and was attending a workshop on educating African American boys. The facilitator, a Black man himself, began by asking all the Black men in the room to stand. Unsure where he was headed, I got up out of my chair. A few other young professionals did so as well. Everyone, I'd like you to take a good look at these men, the facilitator said. Take a good long look because they are an endangered species. At these words, my chest tightened. Forced to remain standing while he spoke, I fixed my eyes on the floor, anywhere but on the faces staring at me. As the facilitator recited a string of damning statistics about Black males, I felt ashamed, then ashamed of feeling ashamed. But ultimately, the experience left me deeply unsettled. Endangered? How could he put me in that position? The truth is, I am privileged. By then, I'd had 24 years of living under my belt, years filled with accolades, graduation parties, college acceptances, and global experiences that helped me realize a life beyond the rhetoric. But many Black males get this message. They are endangered, they are vulnerable or at risk when they are much younger. They hear it in middle and high school, certainly, and sometimes they hear it in the third and fourth grades. Think about the effect such stark words could have on any young person's psyche, regardless of race. Suddenly, your destiny is no longer your own, and it doesn't matter who you are. Your fate is tied to a long history of racially fraught struggle. Worse, you are told you're on the losing side, the side where Blackness connotes limitation. And you learn that you will either defy statistics or more likely live up to them. So I've read from a couple articles. Again, good evening. I'm Reverend Vicki Hughes. And tonight's topic is Are Black Males an Endangered Species? Please continue watching us, and we will be dialoguing. I have four panelists on with me tonight, and we may have a few more join us as we dialogue. Tonight, if you panelists, we have a few new panelists on tonight. So as you talk, if you have not been on before, please introduce yourselves. Tell us where you're from, what type of work you do. Again, our Black males and endangered species. Everyone who is watching, please share this video with your family and friends. Please share now if you are on Facebook Live. We'd appreciate it. And panelists, if you could share this video so that people can watch this live, that would be great. Our moderator for tonight is one of my Morehouse brothers. I'm a Spelman graduate. He is a Morehouse College graduate. His name is Vernon Comer. And so I would like to turn things over to him tonight. I wanted a Black male to facilitate and moderate this discussion. So Vernon.
All right. Thank you, Vicki, and good evening, everyone. once again, you got the subject, and what I'd like to do is just sort of go around the room, get intros and opening statements, and then we'll dive in a little deeper. And we're going to start with Dr. McCarter. Ladies first, please.
Okay, hi, not doctor,
I'm sorry.
but thank you for putting that out there,
Yes,
taking
ma'am.
it to the
Prophecy,
universe.
prophecy. Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
My name is Pamela McCarter. I am from Charlotte, North Carolina. I am the Equity Initiative Leader for the Charlotte Mecklenburg Library. And I love this conversation, and I'm so interested in hearing from the men how they feel about that statement. Um, I, I don't think they're endangered species, but I do think our black males need more support than what is given. So I'll stop at that part.
Okay. And let's see. I'm going to go to a new kid on the block, retired Lieutenant Colonel Trevor Bolden, teacher extraordinaire and Sigma man. Go mob. Um, and go ahead and open for us, Colonel Bolden.
How's everybody doing? I'm Trevor Bolden. All the other titles, all the special agent and lieutenant colonel don't mean a thing to me. I'm just good old Trev. I'm happy to be here, and I'm delighted to any way I can to encourage and definitely demystify the effects of brothers can only run the pigskin and shoot the rock. So yes, I will definitely enjoy just sharing and giving some insight on some things that I've been through in life and some things that I've seen from both sides of the aisle.
Awesome, awesome. And last but not least, Reverend Richard Curry, who I just found out this evening is also my fraternity brother. So,
Hey.
Reverend Curry, the floor is yours, sir.
All right. Good evening to all. I'm Pastor Richard Curry. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm the senior pastor of the True Tribe Missionary Baptist Church, and I'm
Nice.
entering my 30th year in law enforcement. I've been with the Indiana Department of Correction for 30 years, and looking forward to retiring, but very interested in as a community activist to and this topic of black men, endangered species, is near and dear to me. We see too many of our black men locked in the system. So interested, and I'm excited to be one of the panelists and enjoy this conversation.
Awesome, awesome. Okay. I'm going to put my little 2 cents in. Um, are we an endangered species, or is it the things that we do to ourselves that um, keep us from actually realizing our full potential in America? My theory, my what I posit is that it is a little bit of both. I think it's an and also, um, with a larger part of it being the systematic things, the artifices that we face in terms of the isms, racism, the prison industrial complex, the military industrial complex, and all that goes within that. But also, um, as I think has been mentioned, there are things, I guess, home wise, there are things environmentally, um, some things that I do think that we can control. I'm going to give you a specific example. The Atlanta metro area has seen a tremendous rise in just really ridiculous shootings involving young black men, whether it be at the club, whether it be at the restaurant, whether it just be a random drive-by shooting, and we've had little babies, 6 months old, die recently. And that kind of stuff is, it makes you scratch your head and say, like, what is going on with these young men that they so do not value life that they'll shoot into a crowd of perfectly innocent strangers, trying to get revenge or for whatever happened. And one of the things, I didn't know that you were in corrections as well, Reverend Curry. So I'm sure that you've seen your fair share of this, the dysfunction. Once upon a time, I served as a reserve deputy for DeKalb County for about 6 months. 6 months was all I could take in terms of watching the young men come in and get processed, and the offenses that they were jailed for some of them were just like, did you really do something that stupid? And very frankly, a lot of it was just stupid, bad decisions. But, getting to the actual root cause of some of those decisions, that's why I say a lot of it is systematic, but I also think some of it is owned by families, by the community. So please, somebody jump in and, whomever.
Well, I agree with you, and I agree with the stance that you took. However, to add on to that is that there's choices that have to be made, and we have to educate our young boys and our older men as well to make good choices. Oftentimes, in the African American community, we're operating out of survival, not success. And so, one of the worst things you can do to a person is take away their hope. And when hope is gone, you're just out there surviving. And so you end up making choices that you may not have made, or whatever the case may be. And I know we're going to talk about this later as well. However, we have to place some other things in there, some other attributes such as mental health and some other things. I would say disproportionality of services. Not to make any excuses. However, a black man going to the system with a public defender is not the same as a white man going through with a lawyer. So there's a lot of things that's going on. Even in the hometown I live in Indianapolis, my county is the plea bargain capital of the world. Okay, and so when you get these things, and again, because they're not key black men in key places all the time, then legislation changes, and we feel the brunt of it. Again, I think I said it last time. When the white community gets a cold, the black community gets pneumonia, and so we're left to figure out how to deal with this stuff. So that's just my 2 cents on that.
I also do a little work in the jails as an outside vendor coming in to work with youth who are in detention centers. And after having conversation with them about some things, I find that those choices, as you mentioned, Pastor Curry, is that there's some problems of how you make a choice, especially if there's some trauma that has not been healed, if there's some things that have not been addressed, because often we try to throw some strategies out there and say, do this and do that. But when we haven't sat down to find why they do this, really understand the root of what they're doing, we find that there has been some tremendous trauma that has happened in their life, and they haven't healed from that or have even dealt with that. So, just understanding some of that connection, it's hard. It's hard when you're trying to work with young adults like that, or teenage youth who feel like, why do anything better, because they don't know about anything else, anything better. They're like, I've done this. I've ruined, I'm in jail. What else can I go do? My life is already ruined, because they haven't been introduced to anything else, and they haven't worked on the problems that have happened in their life to help them think that there is something better. And I saw family jump on a while ago at Edward Surratt. I don't know where he went to.
He's still on. Trying to get his face on here. Here we go. Okay.
Okay.
You're on, Edward.
Okay, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right, we're good.
Bernie, can you repeat the question for Edward so he can answer?
Yes.
I don't think he was on there.
Mr. Surratt, what we're basically talking about, the opening question was, are Black men and boys, are we an endangered species or not? That's the big question. And why?
You said, and why?
Yes.
Well, I mean, there's, wow, that's a real loaded question, because it can go both ways. Yes, we are endangered, and you can ask why, and we can sit here and lay out a whole list of whys. But when you ask the question, are Black males an endangered species? I would have to say I'm going to go on the other side and say not really. And I'm saying not really because we are endangered within ourselves. Because if you look at the statistics, when you look at what's going on, we know how the police are seemingly gunning us down, gunning our Black men down. But when we look at Black on Black crime, when you really look at Black on Black crime, you start to see that we are really doing it to ourselves. So are Black males endangered? We are endangering ourselves because of what we're doing to ourselves. Now, can that change? Yes. But as far as being an endangered species, I don't think we are an endangered species, because there's still Black men, Black young men, Black boys rising up above and beyond. They're rising up and they're making a difference, and they're doing positive things within their community, within the city, within the state, within the country. They're doing positive things, and we're only endangered if we really focus on the negativity that's surrounding our Black men, our Black boys. That's when I think we really become endangered, when we start focusing on all the negativity, everything that's going on negative in the Black community with our Black men, everything that's going on negative in our Black community with our boys. I had a conversation today with two boys, 9 and 10, can't go to public school because they've been kicked out of school, kicked out. Now they cannot go back to public schools because of their attitudes, because of the things that they've done. And dealing with the parents, and just I was on a phone call with them prior. That's the reason I was late. I was on a phone call with one of the educators, a teacher, and the principal, just trying to see what we can do. And it goes back to the community, and just again, answering this question is, are we endangered? It's self-inflicted. I really look at it as it's really being self-inflicted. And when we focus on that, that's when we become endangered. If that makes sense. I just look at it, I don't feel like we're endangered because all of us have the ability. I know we get into it later on. But all of us have the ability to help someone reach back and really be that mentor to that young man, to that young boy. Be that mentor to help them rise up and above. Help them rise up out of their situation. Instead of looking at them or having them think that they are a part of their environment, have them think that they can come out of that environment. And when we can when we can really instill that in their minds and really instill that in them, it decreases the capability we have, what it takes to make a difference. But if we continue to focus on the negative, if we continue to focus on everything negatively, then we will become an endangered species.
Could I say something really quick, Vernon?
Yes,
Can you hear me? Okay. I agree with
yes,
Edward.
we,
We actually have three reverends on here, three ministers on here. Well, four. Aaron is a chaplain, so like myself.
okay.
Anyway, I agree with Edward. I'm a proponent for mentoring programs, especially for Black males. I just wanted to read something really quick since we're talking about the endangered species concept. Warren Farrell is a popular male issues author. He wrote a book called The Myth of Male Power. And he stated that the Black man is sometimes called an endangered species, but receives little of the protection an endangered species is normally accorded. And then he says, as Black males, we need to seriously reflect on the words endangered species that many social analysts are using to describe our peril in America. When I think of the words endangered species, I immediately think of a life form that is facing extinction. When I think of an endangered species, the spotted owl comes to mind. So that's what he said. I just wanted to read that really quick.
Okay, okay, wonderful. Trevor,
Yes,
I
sir.
see you're chomping at the bit, and then we'll get to Chaplain Bennett. But go ahead, Trevor, because you're
Well,
an educator and you're military
I'm
and
glad they
former
mentioned
law enforcement
endangered
as well.
species. First of all, foremost, I would say, who gave us that title and who came up with that? Who came up with that phrase? And in what context did they mean it? Because nothing replicates quicker than Black males from our family history. We continue to come out, 3, 4 at a time. So we can't be endangered from that aspect. So what aspect are they talking about? So they obviously, there it is again, a mind game trying to get us entrapped in the theory of having a negative view of ourselves, of our communities, and of our kids. So that, and that's all that all buys into the Black man is the boogeyman. The Black man is another type of man. He's not really a man. He's an endangered species. No longer are we men now. Now we're species. So that, all of these titles and things that they start to come up with, instead of actually just realizing that we're humans, we're made in God's image, and we should be respected in that same manner. And from the standpoint of also, and and I'm going to switch real quick, and then I'm going to end up here on the violence within our community. The violence comes because our children don't understand the repercussions of long-term effects in their lives. They don't realize that a 1-minute action can mean a lifetime of problems. An instant decision they make, because they're so in tune with the video games where you can hit the reset button. But in life, there is no reset button. If you pull out that gat and you take somebody out, they just think they can press a reset button until they go through the system, and then they realize this was more than I encountered. What I encountered through this is a whole lot more than what I really realized it would be. So we really have to educate them on life consequences, long-term life consequences of small things you get involved with. Like just hanging in the car with the wrong crew can be a lifetime of problem. Whereas when I was younger, you got in a fight, the fight was over, you went back, But now they won't even fight. They're gonna try to take somebody out. They don't realize once I take out his life, all of a sudden I've not only took out his life, I've taken out my life, I've taken out his family's life and my family's life. So there's multiple families. And if I just forget it, if I hit an innocent child or baby or something like that, now I've taken out a third family, a fourth family, it goes on because we're all part of the common unity, the community. So the whole community hurts over that. And I think that's the part they don't understand, how an instant action has a great effect on the common unity of what you live in. That's it.
Excellent. Chaplain Bennett.
Good evening. I agree with Trevor with how well, they don't see Black people, but especially Black men, as human, and they think that our Black men don't hurt. I always hear you ever hear them say our little boys. We consider them our little boys, but they'll say this man. Our little boys are not allowed to be little boys. They got to be men. They're men. And so that's how the world views them. Like Tamir Rice, Trayvon Martin, those were little boys. But they saw them, oh, that's a grown man. And they've done that. And they called our Black men and Black women beast. We're animals. And that's stemmed from slavery. They think we can handle pain. They act like our Black mothers don't hurt when you kill our young boys. And you kill and you take their life. I saw the video of the no knock or something where the police went in that and they had a key. And they went in there, pulled out a gun, and that was murder. They shot him, killed him. And he was sleeping. And my heart breaks every time I see something like this. I'm like, and in my family, we have 2 new baby boys. We have my baby cousins. They're only 8 months. And I fear for their life. I fear for them, even though they got wonderful parents. And we're going to raise, the family, my family, we're going to just raise them together as a family unit. But we're going to raise them in Christ, and we're going to teach them how to be respectable and to get respect as well, but to be kind people. But I still have this fear for them. What is the world going to see? Even though we've taught them, they still see them as this endangered species. And that's ridiculous. We're human. We are made in God's image. And they don't see that. And unfortunately, we don't see that with each other. And it is a lot of, I hate to call it Black on Black crime. I just call it crime because white people kill each other too. But, Black people, we do kill each other, unfortunately. We don't see the value of life. I'm a hospice chaplain, so I've gained this appreciation for life because I see it leaving. And I see Black, white, Hispanic, all type of people, and guess what? They all hurt and they all die. We're all the same. And for the world and for us to see each other as these type of species, that's really crazy and sad and ridiculous. And I wish when I see a Black man, I respect him. And hopefully I get the same respect in return, but I certainly give him respect. And some are shocked, like they don't expect that from a Black woman. Unfortunately, it's weird, but I'm not like other Black women. I'm going to respect you. And I'm big on mental illness and mental health. I think it's so important. I'm just gonna go to this point, but it's so important that we hear out our young boys. how many are afraid to speak their mind, especially in the Black culture. I think we've gotten a little better with talking to our kids, but I know when I was growing up, you couldn't really speak your mind. You better be quiet. There's no crying. You couldn't do that. And I'm a little girl at the time, and I had pain and I had heartache, and you had to keep that to yourself. And they do that to Black boys. That's not fair. It's not fair. And they should be allowed to express their feelings and not be judged. They should be able to come to their parents and be able to really tell them whatever. Because the world's telling them to be quiet, but at home it should be a safe place. And if they can't get it at home, they're gonna go somewhere else. That's not a good place. They think it might be a good place. It's not a good place. But yeah, that's just my opinion. I think that endangered species, like Trevor said, where'd they come from? Who said it? Who said it? I believe it stemmed from slavery. And then we need to value each other's lives. That's where that crime comes from. We don't value life. And then third thing is mental illness or mental health, and allowing our young boys to speak up and to be vulnerable and to express their feeling.
Oh, wow. That's a lot. But thank you so much, Chaplain Bennett. I'm going to read the statement that Dr. Patrick Graham put out in relation to what you were saying, Chaplain Bennett. He's basically said the term Black on Black crime is loaded. Crime is often a process of community and proximity. Most victims in all racial or social categories are victimized by someone in their social group. And I find that to be very true. When the conservatives come on TV touting this, Black on Black crime, and they use that term, that misnomer, Black on Black crime, to prosecute us disproportionately. Because like most statistics show, white on white, whites in proximity to each other, white on white crime. There's a certain county north of Metro Atlanta where they have, all kind of meth-related issues and all kind of crime, but you never hear it termed as white on white crime. But it is, because, and they're cousins and sisters and mothers, and they're shooting each other. And, it just is what it is. As Dr. Graham said, it's proximity. Atlanta's also gotten a larger Latino population, a larger Asian American population. And there are certain parts in North Atlanta, just outside the city limits, that are, gang infested, and they have gang units in those specific cities or those townships that specifically will tell you, well, we've got this set of Asian gangs here and this set of Latin gangs here, and they're always fighting and clashing. What Dr. Graham said and what you said, is correct and on the money. And I think all of us would agree. I'm going to go back to everybody's point where that endangered species, that label, it is a misnomer. Words are powerful. And as you said, Chaplain, that emanates from slavery. That emanates from, they feared us despite them lording over us since they brought our ancestors from Africa. They fear us. They fear our physicality, our everything. One of the things you pointed out, and it sort of hit me, I don't know if any of you all kept up with the Ahmaud Arbery trial down in Brunswick, Georgia, but one of the things the defense attorney for one of the white men that killed him said, she tried in her closing statements, she tried to paint Ahmaud Arbery as a beast, saying his black skin was dusty and his long nails, and just, to the point where the mother just she got upset, and understandably so. But that was, part of what you mentioned, Chaplain, as far as, how they dehumanize us. And that's part of the ongoing thing that we as Black people, we have to constantly face being dehumanized, being objectified, and part of it we do to ourselves, because we just sort of say, okay, well, blah blah blah, and all of what, I guess what everybody said. You mentioned mental health and being able to access health, but you've got to know you're hurt. You've got to know you're hurting. You got to understand that you need help. You've got to understand. You got to see something. If you're in a quote unquote bad situation, it's like, what is your norm? What are our norms? And once upon a time, and I'm from a little small town in Alabama originally, and I've been in Atlanta, sort of in this metro urban situation for about 40 years. But I'm from a small town, and there were certain things that I grew up I didn't see. We had relationship with police officers, and we went to the police station and talked to them, and they talked to us, and they did foot beats, and they were in the community, and the butcher baker and the candlestick maker all sort of lived together. We were not as spread out as we are now, as far as our communities, as far as the role models that we once had in our communities. And that's my sort of kind of rant, but I guess, this sort of is a good segue into, the whys, the maladies that we face in our community, and the destruction of the Black family. Let's sort of get into a little bit deeper into some of those root causes as to why, and what we can do individually, collectively, between our organizations, between each other. What can we really, how can we combat the systematic things? Because I'm one of those folks who believes a lot of stuff is and also, as opposed to either or. We've got to fight the things on the systematic end, but we've also got to do the work internally, in-house, within our communities as well, to get to a better place. But we've got to fight, the systematic things. We've got to fight police brutality. We can't, let our guard down on that. We can't stop fighting that. But then we've also got to, hold our young people accountable, teach them better. Just as a little note, Trevor and I taught young men, we taught children Sunday school together for about 15, 20 years. And we saw some of our young people grow up and do better, but then we saw other young people who made choices that were not necessarily in their best interest long term. And, they even have said, oh, wow, I never thought this, young ladies who, 3 or 4 babies later, and it's like, okay, we still loving on them, but, all of that. So where do we begin? How do we do this thing? How do we begin, heal? How do we fight? How do we continue to fight? What do we do? Reverend Curry.
Well, the first thing, it's not going to go away, right? And we can't arrest our way out of it. We can't talk our way out of it. There has to be action, and part of it is that a lot of the resources that are needed in the community are not prioritized in the right direction, and it's not given credence by the right people. If you don't care about something, and you don't care about a personality or a race, then you're not going to give the proper resources. Our community lacks resources. Simple as that. Our schools, when we're paying $200 for book rental, but they don't have enough books. Okay, there's a lot of, I could go on and on. But again, it has to be where people feel that they're being invested in. I like to share a quick story. This is pretty cool. I work for the prison system, and prisons work not because that you got all the best staff and this and that. Prison work because it works because a lot of people take time to meet the needs of the inmates that are there. When the needs are not met, we call that a riot.
Mm.
Our communities are in a riot because needs are not being met. Okay, when there's a food desert, when there's not a proper school, when there's the community where I serve, there's not even a bank. Okay, so now it's a war zone. And so again, it goes back to survival. You got these shoes that I want, but I can't get. So now I'm going to do those things to survive. And sometimes these choices outweigh the circumstances while they're making the choices. And so a lot of stuff going on. One other quick story. I had 60 kids fighting in the middle of the street one day. Nobody called the police. Everybody took their cameras out and wanted to do the Facebook Live thing or whatever. So I got out there with some of the kids that I had been mentoring in the public school. And I said to them, why are you guys fighting? Why? And the young man said, I don't even know if he realized what he said. He says, we don't have anything else to do. Okay. Now, that may seem silly, but man, that was prophetic to me, because what it meant to me is that there was not enough being offered in our neighborhood for them to quit fighting.
Wow.
Okay. And so there are things that are going on in our communities that if we don't pay attention to it, and if we don't get the right people in the right places, we have to have people fighting for us legislatively, judicially, and in the executive branch. We need them to hold hands. We need subject matter experts who know what's going on, because behind one bill is another bill and another bill. And we need to quit voting for people just because they're Black.
Amen. Amen.
In Indianapolis right now,
Amen.
in the area where I serve, all of our legislators run unopposed. So what's that mean? They don't have to have an agenda. They don't have to come to the community. They don't have to listen to us. A lot of people don't understand that even the gerrymandering that's going on, it starts at the city council level, not at the governor level. So we have to educate ourselves. We have to educate the community of what's going on, because it's not going to go away. Everybody wants it to be like it used to be, but it's not going to be like it used to be unless we start making changes at the ground level with these people and forming these groups like this to have this dialogue. Because if not, they're going to continue to make prisons. They're going to and by the way, they're making some pretty good money off the backs of Black people.
I definitely agree with what Richard said with the community is going to be key in changing this. often we find that there's one or two groups really focused on helping community, when just like when we're talking about racism itself, it's so deeply embedded into the structure of where we live and how we live in our country, that's the same thing, that we've got so many years of things that have happened to men, from them being targeted in certain ways to the emasculation of sometimes men as well, that these are these are things that have happened to them. And so it requires lots of people in the community, from church, from schools, from any aspect in our community, have to focus on these youth as they're growing up, as well as men who are already there. There is a great program here in Charlotte called the Male's Place.
Yeah.
And it's been going on for several years, and they're teaching the young men how to be men and care about their community. So they're teaching them about how they just really need to, not just take in information, but what to give out, because they have to set them up and understand that they are also preparing a legacy that follows them, that they have a role in this journey, that people are looking out for them, but they are also needing to look out for people behind them, whether it's their family, their community. So teaching them about legacy building, not just the money, but what do they have? What will people say about them once they're gone or they've moved from that community? So it's getting them to understand that, but it involves so many different people to be involved in that. And it's going to be hard work. It's going to be hard work, and it's going to seem like you're going to get fatigue. Well, anytime you are working a muscle or a mindset or behavior, just like if you're working out, if you start doing something that you haven't done before, your muscles start getting fatigued and you're shaky. That is the same in this work that we're doing, is that's what's going to happen. You're going to get tired about, what do we need to do for our Black men? I'm tired of this. But also within that shaky and sore muscle means that there's a movement, that you're doing something right. So we got to think that way too, that this struggle that we have and trying to figure it out, we're challenging the system that's already been set up. So we just got to keep going past that, and, and just connecting, like you said, conversations that we need to have, continuous dialogue, that it doesn't have to be a big organization doing things. Everybody who is on this call, everybody who's on this panel can do something that now stimulates, encourage, motivates, develop, propel this whole thing of supporting and loving our Black men and people, our Black people as well. That this is something we just have to do collectively. But how do we do it? And how do we get people to really work together to do this? That's where some of that hard work comes.
Pam, I'm familiar with the organization you were talking about. Everybody who's watching, I used to live in Charlotte, North Carolina. I ran my own youth nonprofit for girls. So I was friends with some of the guys who ran the nonprofits for boys. So anyway, with the Male's Place, the executive director allowed me to sit in once on one of their talks. So there was a village of people there. He had, I believe there were about 7 or 8 Black males there, all ages, and they were mentoring these boys. They were asking them, how was your day? How are you doing in school? What problems are you having? Let us help you. Let's talk. They meet regularly. I believe, Pam, is it every 2 weeks, I think? Mm-hmm. And or maybe even weekly, and they're staying on top of these boys to make sure they're doing okay and to keep them on the right track. So
it's a wonderful concept of how they do that, as well as introducing them to people in the community too, trusted people who are looking out for their well-being, and that's what's important too, because if you have those youth who don't have they have disregard to everybody else, and they want, they don't care about causing harm to anyone. It's because They don't feel like anybody cared about them. So why are they going to give that out to someone else? And that's that vulnerability piece that they're afraid of. And so having mentors to help and talk to them and expose them to something a little bit different than what they're used to gives them more hope, gives them a different perspective that they may not have had before.
Yeah.
Wow. Dr. Surratt, Reverend Surratt, comments. Where I see the look on your face. So
You're muted.
muted. You're muted. Uh-oh.
Can you hear me?
No. Now, yes.
Yeah, okay. I didn't do it. Agree. Y'all can hear me now, right? Okay. One of the
Yes.
things, I agree with what everyone has said, and I think to really add to it, I think we need to go back to the basics. Go back to how. When I say go back to the basics, go back to the way we were brought up. A lot of us were brought up where we didn't fear, anybody. We didn't fear if if we got out of line, we got dealt with by whomever. I use myself as an example. Growing up in the church, everybody dealt with me. When I got out of the line, it can be my aunt, it can be my cousins, it can be Big Mama down the road. Everybody dealt with me, and they weren't afraid. And now I realize in our communities, we have so many people that are afraid to correct children, correct our young men, or tell our young men, pull your pants up, because a lot of us are fearing what their parents or whomever may say to us. So we'll just let it slide. We'll let it go by. We won't say anything. We are afraid to speak up to that young black man, to that young black boy, telling him, even speaking positivity in him, telling him, hey, man, you have the ability to make something of yourself. You have the ability. You can create. You can become that lawyer. You can become that doctor. You can become that business owner. A lot of us have become so afraid to speak positivity into these young men outside of different organizations. All these organizations that are doing great things, we become so afraid of speaking positivity into the minds of these young men because we are fearing what may happen. Even a lot of the churches have stepped back. I heard you, Vernon. I heard you, and I think Trevor up there. Y'all was talking about how y'all taught Sunday school for years. Taught children Sunday school for years. A lot of that has gone. A lot of that has just gone by the wayside. And I think it's time for really just getting back to basics, to where we said, okay, look, we're going to take back our communities. We're going to make sure our young men, our young women have the proper tools, have the proper resources, because resources are a big thing. Have the proper mentors that they can look up to. And it's sad, in the community I live in South Carolina down here, we got young men looking up to the preachers, not because of preaching the word, but because they drive a nice Benz, and because they dress because they got all the women. I'm just keeping it real. They're looking up to the preachers for this reason, and the preachers are loving it, and they're not stepping up and saying, "Hey, no, it's not me. I'm working for this. I'm working toward this. I have a stable family. I have a stable home. I have a wife. I'm doing all the right things." We have to get back to the basics, getting back to the basics and instilling in our young men and women that they are important, that they are valuable, that they mean something, that they have a future. Getting back to those basics and not be afraid to tell our young men or young women, for that, pull your pants up. Tell them, hey, I believe in you. When was the last time we just, spoken to a young person and said, I believe in you. I believe in you. I know you have the capability of being and doing and going. You are college material. Getting back to those basics and instilling in them, and not be afraid of what mom and daddy may say or what uncle and auntie may say, because they want them to go to the NFL. They want them to go to the NBA. And you look at that, and I hear so much of that because down here in South Carolina, which is in a lot of states, but football is king. And a lot of these kids, they're on the football field and they're playing, they're doing great, but they can't get into D1 schools. They can't even get into college, and you got people making backdoor deals so they can get into colleges. I'm going, wait a minute, you're good enough to play on the field, but you're not good enough to get into a college. We got to get back to the basics and instill in our young men and women that they are valuable, and we can't be afraid. We can't be afraid to step up and let them know that they too, they can make it. They have the ability to become something. Because if we just allow them to keep going through this cycle, it's going to repeat itself. It's going to repeat itself. And we're going to find more and more of our young men on the street, more and more of our young men locked up behind bars, more and more of our young men, going in and out of jail, more and more of our young men and women doing these things that aren't producing anything. So it's just getting back, for me, it's getting back to basics and really instilling in them that they are important, that they do have a future. They have a positive, they have a bright future other than what they see. They're not, as I said earlier, they're not a product of their environment. They can rise up out of that environment. But we have to be able and have a boldness about us to say, you know what, I'm going to speak into the young person's mind. And I don't care if I'm in Walmart, Bilo, wherever, I'm going to speak into the young person's mind if I see them, acting a monkey. I'm going to let them know, hey, don't do that. We're going to talk about this. It's time for just step up and being positive role model, positive mentors to these young people. So that's my take on just getting back to the basics, to where, we had a foundation to where we didn't fear. We stepped up, and we really did what we were supposed to do. And our parents and grandparents, I'm from the old school. They did what they were supposed to do. I'm not perfect, but they instilled in me. They instilled in the children, the grandchildren, that, hey, you can become something. Put your mind to it. So that's where I am.
I was just looking at some of the comments that we were getting from viewers. So one of them says, what are the strengths of Black men? We often discuss us from a deficit point of view. That's the comments coming from a Black male. So what are the strengths of Black men? We have 4 on here tonight. Well, what do you think? Tell us some strengths that viewers need to hear. Strengths of Black men.
Perseverance.
I like that one. Resilient. Resilient.
Creativity.
I would say flexibility.
Yeah.
Y'all can keep telling us more.
I'll jump in.
Strengths.
Yeah, I think though, when we talk about resiliency, then it could be positive and both negative. I think someone made it on the chat as well. Oftentimes we're not, if we're not careful, we end up taking a back seat and say stuff like say things like, well, what's the use? We're going to do that. We'll fight through this. We'll go through this. And sometimes that resiliency it hurts us more than it helps us, because we don't stand up for ourselves. And so, all too often, standing up for ourselves is not a safe space. When you're the only Black person, you're the only Black executive, or even in a situation where in the school there's no one that looks like you, except the custodian. So they're not safe spaces. So people create these narratives. And yes, we are resilient, but we're resilient in other ways, and we navigate that in ways where we're resilient because we're tough, or because we can fight, or we can do those other things. And so I think sometimes resiliency is a bad thing, or a bad moniker to place upon us.
One of our viewers said, and this is a Black male too, someone I know, Reverend Keith Banner, said accountability is a strength. I don't think anybody said that word. Did you all?
I saw that. I saw the accountability, and that's real good. But as Brother Curry was said, Rev Curry, it's that could be a dual-edged sword from the standpoint of so often that we have to live a dualistic life, like from the corporate side, and then you come back in the hood. See, I've been I'm constantly been in corporate, then back in the hood, corporate, back in the hood, and you got to be able to communicate and operate at the maximum level in both environments. So you don't know the mental psyche of being accountable in both of those situations, and still so quote unquote being a leader in both of those environments. Then you holding up the mantle for all the brothers. When you're in the corporate environment, you're the mantle for all the brothers, because you don't want to, I don't want to disgrace the brother. Since I'm the only one here, I want to be an example. Then you got to come back in the hood, and they're like, oh, you're not with us now anymore. It's like, no, this is who I really am. But you don't understand. I have to be this side, and I have to be this side, and then I got to come home and be husband. I got to be father. I got to be. So what happens is we get pulled, and that's why we got to be pliable. And but I'm telling you, bro, that's where I would say the mental aspect of why brothers could get burnt out, because they really don't have anybody to really turn to and say, I got all these pieces going on, and I got to be at the top of my game in all of these pieces, from dad to son to brother to corporate exec to assistant principal, the principal in the school, all of that. I still got to be A1 in every aspect, and I never get a chance to bring it down, or anybody to share it to bring it down with.
Wow. And that is a perfect segue into, I guess, what I would consider the third topic that we're going to try to broach tonight, with Black mental health and the suicide rate. According to some statistics, the Black suicide rate in recent years is twice that of whites. And Chaplain Bennett, I just so enjoyed your passion as far as Black men. Can you speak to that? Just based on your observations and what we've said, because I have actually endured, experienced what Trevor says. It's what Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, called the double consciousness, because you're trying to be Black, trying to be American, trying to do everything, and we as Black men trying to be husband, provider, good father, role model, all of that rolled into one. And frequently we don't have anybody to woo-saw to, because even some of our brothers, he weak. He's a BA. I'm not going to use the term, but a BAN. So could you please share with us? Oh,
sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can.
Okay. I think it's very important that a Black man find a safe place or safe space to be able to open up. Everybody has feelings. Everybody hurts. And I go back to, what I said a little earlier, that they think Black folks, we can just handle everything, and we don't hurt, and we don't have feelings. And, I work in corporate. I work for a hospice company, but it's corporate. And there's Black people there, but then I'm in a group sometimes where I'm the only Black person at these meetings. And if but with Black women, we have attitudes if we speak up, or if we don't like certain things. Oh, they have an attitude. Well, white girl, you got an attitude too. So I don't understand. But going back to, I have a few Black male patients, and they're very resilient, and I'm going to get better, and I'm going to, get my strength back. And in my mind, I'm like, you're on hospice. I believe in miracles, but you're on hospice, just being real. But I allow them to open up and be vulnerable. There are times they don't want their wife in the room. They tell me stuff they don't tell nobody else. And I'm like, ooh, I didn't, you seem so strong from all the things you've been through, but he may cry. And he's like, well, you didn't judge me. I'm like, no, because that's a pain that you dealt with and you had to deal with all your life. And it's okay to let it out. One thing, it might happen with white guys, but I know it happens with our Black boys and Black men. Don't you cry. What you crying for? That's you being a punk. Crying is not weakness. You're hurting. I cry. I deal with my own. I'm gonna just open up to you guys. This past few weeks, I had my moments of darkness where I wanted to give up on life. Just straight up. I want to be like, I don't want to do this no more, Lord. I can't do this. I want to be, I'm done. And so I went back to counseling. I think counseling is so important. I think a Black male and Black females, but Black males, since that's our subject tonight, Black men, you have to find somebody to talk to. Don't keep it in. Because me as a chaplain and a counselor, I'm taking in and taking in and taking in, and I'm not being able to give out, and I'm just taking it all in, and I'm just walking, and then it hit me like, oh my God, I'm sad. I'm got my own issues. And like my brother Trevor, he said, Black men, you're a CEO, you're a preacher. I think our pastors hold in a lot. Our Black male pastors, they're helping everybody else, but a lot of them commit suicide. They don't talk about it a lot, but they do. And I'm like, oh, where was his help? And what did he cry out for help? A lot of people keep it in. And you see your pastor and you think he's doing okay. Then next thing you know, he done killed himself. You're like, and the congregation shocked. What happened? My pastor done got up and preached every Sunday. But did your wife know? Did your friend? I have my best friend that we go to each other, and I tell her things like, man, you know what? I'm hurting. This hurts. And at least I got it out. And like I said, I'm going back to counseling. This hurts. So I feel like Black men, yes, you're strong, you're smart, you're brilliant. You got the world on your shoulder. You're dodging the police, you're dodging this, you're dodging it. And you need to be able to come home to a safe place or find a friend or a counselor where you can feel safe and be able to be vulnerable and not be called weak, because it's not a weakness. It's actually a strength. So that's just my 20 cents.
I was going to say, just to piggyback off of what the things Aaron was saying, that's what, when black men come home, if they are married, I hope that whoever they're married to, whether it's, black women, Asian, Latino, whoever, white, Caucasian, I hope that their women are supportive of them, because you all do deal with a lot when you're out in the world. And so it helps to have a strong woman behind you. Gosh, this is a heavy topic. Everybody's quiet. I mean,
Well, it is a heavy topic because it's heavy on our hearts. That's where the heaviness is, because we know this needs to happen. But having the framework of it to do it is where it's hard. But again, like we've mentioned tonight, these conversations need to be had with groups, individuals. There is a two books. They're the same kind of topic, but it's called Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man and Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Boy, and they're by Emmanuel Acho. So it is about how do you talk to the men and Black boys about some of these uncomfortable conversations that we're mentioning, that there are people who don't have your best interests, or where there are things that they need to be doing, and how they need to find those people around them when they feel vulnerable. Do they have that person in place if they need to talk to someone? And that they don't always have to be strong, because that's what we've kind of pushed into our young males is you got to be strong. And you men have been strong in spite of all these other things. And that can be very hard. And I think that's another reason why that suicide rate in the Black men is, because in spite of all of this pressure I'm having, I'm trying to hold it together. I'm trying. And if they feel like they failed somewhere, then they don't feel like they're a man. And so what is their purpose? They've lost their purpose of what they're supposed to be doing. And then they don't see the future. They don't see their impact. They don't see anything there. But they have to continue having this conversation and letting these young men know that too, that, yeah, I have some bad days too, that I've come from something. I've come from some problems. I've had some weaknesses at some point in time, but how do you recover from that? How do you move beyond that? And again, I speak on just because I deal with a lot of young men. Those conversations that I have with them is important in the topics that you've been leading to in the discussion around is very much on their minds as well, but they don't feel like there's somewhere for them to go. And finding that mentor too.
Right. As a chaplain, I mean, I know that, a lot of African American patients, whether at hospitals or whichever health facilities, they especially as people get older, they would prefer to see people who look like them. So I was going to read this statistic. This is from 2018. It's from the APA Center for Workforce Studies. This is some data, and it basically says when Black men do seek help and they're preferring a same race provider, this says it can be difficult finding Black psychologists, since the Black psychologists still only make up about 4% of the doctoral level psychology workforce. That's a problem.
I want to jump in there. My wife's a therapist, and she would agree with that wholeheartedly. It's not necessarily a safe space, and even those who practice that craft in schools and other places, they often misdiagnose our Black children. Everybody is familiar with the the Ritalin saga, where where we're just out of control. So we want to give you something to calm you down, and there is a cultural breach there. And the other thing is again, it goes back to the lack of resources. Do I have insurance
Yeah.
to go somewhere that's reputable? And so, I think those problems can compound, and in the meantime, they don't go away, and then you end up either not talking to someone at all, or you end up in the same theory: birds of a feather flock together, or we do these things, other harmful things, to self-medicate and try to handle our situations that way. And again, it's complicated, but I would start that there needs to be people that look like us, that are administering and giving us, because again, I've been to therapists before, and I was not pleased, because you're giving a spin. You don't know me as an African American man, and so that's pretty much how I feel about that.
Mhm. That's why a lot of black men, I guess, would tell their business, talk about various issues, personal issues, or just community issues in places like barbershops. Don't you all have conversations about
Country
police
club.
brutality and whatever else when you go get your haircut, or I don't know. You all could probably name some other places. Well, in you all at least three of the men on here tonight are in a fraternity, so I'm sure you all would talk in groups at your fraternity meetings or events, right?
Yeah. One of the
Can I
things
can
that,
I
oh,
excuse me? Can
go,
I
go
ask
ahead.
Brother Bolden? And I was both in the military as well. I mean, there were some unsafe places even when I was in the military, where you know we were stereotyped,
Yeah.
and and so it wasn't even safe there, even though that's one of the greatest places where Black people excel. And so there were things I was misunderstood in the military, I feel. So I mean, if you want to speak to that.
Yeah. A lot of you all, even that much like corporate, you thought it was two. It was like two. It's like two sets of soldiers. It really was. You thought. But the opportunity if you had the opportunity to have a brother who was over you in command or something like that, and then you could communicate, then you felt an autumn, and that wasn't always a part of it, but you felt automatically a connection that you had never felt with any other leader. You got, wow, he's really not only is he's talking to me, he's talking to me about life, the job, and he's putting me together as a whole entire person, instead of just speaking to me in one aspect of, I need you to complete this task and you get it done. Whereas he's like, how you doing? How's your wife? How's everything at home? Let's work on this together. So he can feel when there's some friction in your life. Now he's gonna say, let me help you out with that. So then he's helping you, and then he's ministering to you. He's helping you and ministering to you. And that's that piece that we miss when we don't have the connectivity of somebody in leadership who has our same, I guess, say, soul patrol. I used to call it the soul patrol. I like, a lot of the guys would always say, sir, can you be in the soul patrol with us? We just need to get some things off our show. They would want to just talk about just some things that's going on.
Wow. Hey, y'all, this has been great. Um, we're going to do like a quick wrap up, because Vicky actually has a surprise for us, and she needs a few minutes to do her thing. But if everybody can, 30 seconds or less, just close out your ending statement, and then we're going to turn it over to Vicky to do her closeout. So 30 seconds, please.
Don't all speak at once.
Well, I'll go first then. I'll go first. 30 seconds less. I've been really enjoyed this on tonight. It's really great. A lot of good dialogue come from it. Just great meeting some of the ones I'm meeting all of you that I don't know. But one thing that I share, I work in a hospital setting, and one thing that I share every day that people look forward to hearing me say is, I never have bad days. And they look at me and they're like, how is it that you never have bad days? Everybody have a bad day. I said, no, I may have a bad moment in that day, but I never allow that moment to control the rest of my day. So I'm just going to leave that with you. No, we don't have bad days, and you just have that moment, but never allow that moment to control your day to make it to where, you just regret that day. So you don't have bad days. You just have bad moments in that day.
I'll go ahead and jump in. I think that in closing, we talked about this. The church needs to be more involved. And I still believe that upon this rock is built my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail upon it. And he's given us keys. So we need to place people in positions and key leadership positions and start going back to discipling people so that people are in these areas that have influence. So ought to be Christians in every area and walk of life, so that we can battle this together. And that's what I think. I think the church is somewhat complicit in this age where we rather entertain, and I'm a pastor, than build folk up. So I'll just leave it right there.
Pam?
I would like to say that sometimes there's not enough resources, as I think Trevor mentioned, but there's the possibility of resources. There are places that don't know that we need this. They're waiting for someone to tell them. I work for the library, and this is part of my thing that I go do, is work with the community and help those youth with thinking about who they are beyond their skin color, and thinking about how do they find their way from situations that, like Reverend Surratt said, it's not your whole life. It's a moment that happened. And so I get to talk to them about how do we move beyond this thing that has happened to you, whatever the situation is, and that there are people wanting to do be a resource to help, from mental health counselors that are out there. There's students that are in schools that are in universities that are looking for practical work to do. There are different people who want to just have dialogue and conversation, and how do they help? It's that we got to share and tell and ask. It's like, I'm looking for you to step up to help do this, because you can't do it alone. So you got to pull the village together, everybody in the village, and say, this is what I need from you. This is my expectation. And then they'll step up. And then many people who have that passion is like, well, how do I do this? I don't have any money. I don't have any resources to gather this. There are tons of grants that help right now, just on this situation. How do we help our community? So there's things there, the access, they just need to know where to go get it. And often if you just go to your library, some of the other grant funding organizations in your city will be able to share what they're looking for and what they're giving money to do to help. Right now, the biggest thing in across the country are organizations wanting to give money to help with trauma and healing in our communities. So it's there. You just got to ask people about it. Don't be afraid.
Thank you, Pam. And Trevor, 30 seconds. Then we'll bring on Revy V.
All right. It was great. It was great being there with everybody. But since this was about Black males, I have a little saying that anytime I deal with, especially my young brothers, I make sure I see them, because once I see them, I can communicate. And with C, it's an acronym for, I'm gonna start with sports. I'm gonna go to entertainment, and then I'm gonna bring in economics. So long as I see them, because those are the things that will connect us. So I gotta see them to connect with them. Then I can mentor them.
And it's all yours, Reverend
Wait,
Vicky.
wait. Did everybody go? Reverend Surratt, you went?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Reverend Kurt, okay. And Vernon, are you going to say anything? I don't know if you said
Y'all, I don't
time.
even want to repeat everybody. It was great meeting the folks I hadn't met before. It was great. And take it away.
Okay. Okay. Before I read what my surprise, as Vernon calls it, I just wanted to tell everybody, well, first of all, happy Black History Month. And I just want to encourage everybody, including viewers, to really focus on the greatness of Black people, period. But also just this month and every day of this year into next year, please highlight some Black males, read up on some great things that people deceased and living have done. Again, that's my challenge to everybody. And also, I want to send prayers to the family of Amir Locke. We didn't get to talk about police brutality a whole bunch tonight. There were so many different areas to cover, but I want to send prayers to that family. His case was yet another murder of a young Black male, period, in a police brutality case. It's happening more and more, so I feel for that family. So to close out, I wrote a poem last year. I'm a poet and a writer, as well as being in ministry and doing some other things. And so my poem is called Black Maleness. Your skin may be brown, but you are most definitely labeled by society as Black. Your maleness feared, often life snuffed out, seared. Your mind sharp, always on alert, subject to hatred, so much hurt. I lift you up, compassion and concern flow from my very being, runneth over my cup. Society just doesn't know your suaveness, your intellect, your drive. Digging into your very existence, they dive. They push, they prod, they test, they provoke, not understanding the content of your yoke. Strength, courage, and wisdom. You've had a lot on your backs, duties and scars. Black maleness, that's who you are. So high, you've set the bar. Keep being you. See that through. That was Black Maleness, written by yours truly, 2021. So that was my closing. Everybody's giving me snaps. So thank you to all panelists. You all have been awesome. Chaplain Erin Bennett had to get off a little early, so I thank her as well. Thank you, panelists. You all have had some amazing things to say. Thank you, viewers. Thank you for being so engaged and involved in our dialogue. There have been several comments. Thank you so much. And that is it. We dialogue every other Tuesday night from 7:30 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we will be back in a couple of weeks, and we'll be talking about Black entertainment during Black History Month. So that is it. Thank you, everybody, and good night.